Hello children, how are you all? I hope you all are doing well. So today in this chapter we will learn about adaptation in plants. So children, plants adapt, change themselves according to the environment they are living in, okay? According to their habitat, okay? So in this chapter we will learn about those changes, right? That plants change in themselves, okay? What are the changes that they bring in themselves to live in the particular environment. So let's begin. So in your previous classes you have read about plants, right? The parts of a plant and how they make their food. So just observe these pictures and can you tell where these plants live and grow? Can you identify them? Write their name too. So this is a mango tree, right? This is a cactus, this is coconut. This is banyan tree, this is lotus and this is pine tree. So can you tell where they grow? So for example, if we talk about cactus, cactus grow in the desert area, right? Similarly, pine trees are generally found in the hilly areas or the mountains. Lotus grow in the water, right? So do it for the rest of the pictures also, okay? Now let's go to the next page. So plants grow everywhere, right? On plains, on mountains, in deserts and in water bodies. They grow from each other depending on the surrounding where they grow. So now see, plants grow everywhere, be it plains, be it the water, be it in desert, right? But still they differ in something or the other thing, right? So depending on the type of area they differ from each other depending on the surrounding where they grow, right? So the plants grow everywhere in different kind of environment, be it harsh climate like mountains and desert, be it plain, but they still differ in something or the other thing, right? To live in those environment, they change themselves in some ways. So in this chapter we will learn about them only. So what is a habitat firstly? The place, it is a place where an organism lives in nature, right? It is their home. It is called the habitat. So a habitat fulfills all the requirements of an organism. The water, the food, the reproductive environment it provides, right? So habitat is that place. Now let's understand the adaptation, okay? So what are the kind of adaptation that animals do? So different places have different climates, right? And most living things have special features that help them survive in their habitat. Some special features are called adaptation. So all have some kind of features, but they have also some special features and these features are called adaptation. So depending upon the habitat they live, plants can be divided into two main groups, okay? Either the plants grow in the water, okay, so they are called the aquatic plants or the water plants, or they grow on the land, that is the terrestrial plant or the land plants, okay. Now let's talk about first the aquatic plant. So plants that grow or live in water are called aquatic plants, right? Some aquatic plants grow in salt water like seas and oceans, while other grows in fresh water like lakes, river and stream. So there are different kind of plants that live in the aquatic environment, in the water or on the water. For example, some grow in seas and ocean which have salty water. Some grow in fresh water like lakes and river, right? So let's categorize this. Aquatic plants, okay, so they can be floating, they can be fixed and they can be completely under the water, right? Now let's go to the next page. So what are floating plants? So these floating plants are those that float on the water, right? Have you ever seen this kind of plant, these kind of plants growing on the water, right? They looks very bushy. So these are called, for example, water hyacinth and duckweed, pistia. So they have following adaptation. The roots of these plants are not fixed but float on water, okay? So for example, this is the water body, okay, this is the top and these plants grow on the top, right? They grow on the top. They do not have any fixed root, connected to the land. Okay, they have floating root. Now the stems of these plants are soft and spongy. They make them light to float. The stems, okay, they are soft and spongy, right? They are spongy stems, right? They have spongy stems, and this makes them light and float, right? This reduces the weight of that plant, which makes them float. Do you know water chestnut or singara that we eat? Those plants have floating green roots which prepare food. Okay. Now what about the fixed plants? So fixed plants that have roots fixed to the bottom of a water body, such as lake or river, are called fixed plant. Example, lotus, water lily, right? So in this case, what happens is, the plant is connected to the base, okay, through a root, and it grows on the water. Okay, this happens in case of lotus and water lily. They are not floating, they are connected to the base. Now they have long stem to reach the surface of the water. Since they are connected, they have to reach the surface. So they have long stems. They have broad leaves which float on water. The leaves have waxy coating to prevent rooting. Okay, so they have broad leaves. For example, in lotus it has broad leaves, right, which can float on water. The leaves are also have waxy coating, and that's why any water drop on the leaf, right, it is not, it doesn't stay on the leaf, right? It looks like a, it looks like a pearl on the leaf, right? The upper side of the leaf have stomata, right? So generally the lower part of the leaf have stomata, but these leaves, since they grow on the water, therefore these leaves have stomata on their upper side. Their stems are hollow, thin, flexible and light, that makes the leaf to float. Okay, so they need to float on the water. For that they have hollow, thin, flexible and light stems that helps them to float on the water. Okay, do you know, being thin, stem can easily bend with the flow of water and so prevent damage due to strong water current. This kind of adaptation also prevent them from damaging from the strong water current. Okay, so the flexibility provided by this adaptation helps them overcome this water current, these kind of strong water current. Now what are underwater plants? So these plants grow under the water, completely underwater, and are called underwater plants, and they are called submerged plant also, like tape grass, pondweed, hydrilla, right? They grow completely under the water. The roots are fixed at the bottom of the water body, right? So in this case, they grow like this. So the base is connected to the land. All right. Now let's go to the next page. The stems are flexible, right? So the stem is also flexible to withstand the water current. The plants have thin, narrow, ribbon-like leaves to prevent damage to leaves due to the flow of water. Again, they have thin, these types of leaves, right? So that they can prevent any damage to leaf due to the flow of water. The leaves do not have stomata, they breathe through plant body. Okay, so they breathe through their body directly. Since they are not connected, they are not on the top of the water, so they do not get much sunlight and therefore they do not have stomata. Now let's talk about the terrestrial plant, the plants that grow on the land, right? So the plant that grow on the land, these are terrestrial plants or the land plants. So plants grow in different types of land areas, and so they adapt themselves according to their weather type, soil and factors that affect that area. For example, terrestrial plants can be divided into plants that grow in plains, in deserts, in mountains, in heavy rainfall areas, in swamp and marshes. So plants in plains, okay. So plains consist of forest. Some plants grow in plains where it is hot in summer and cold winter. So can you just imagine the extreme environment, hot and the cold, right? They have many branches, so they need more space to spread out, right? They have many branches, so therefore they need more space to spread out, and that's why they are present in the plain. So mango, peepal, neem, shisham, right? These are all examples of the plants, trees that grow in the plains. So, and they have following adaptation, like most trees growing in plants have flat leaves, okay. They have flat leaves because they need more energy, right? They need to do photosynthesis, so they have flat and broad leaf. The stomata present in the leaves help in evaporation, okay. So the stomata that is present in the leaf help in the evaporation of water vapor and keep the tree cool, okay. So the large surface area of leaf also helps the tree to maintain its coolness. Some trees shed their leaves once a year and are called deciduous trees. These trees have many branches and broad leaves. So see, there are some trees that shed all their leaves at once at a particular time of a year, and these are called deciduous trees, okay. And they have many branches and broad leaves. For example, sal, champa, gulmohar, teak, right? And some trees remain evergreen throughout the year. So basically they do also fall off their leaves, but at different period of the year, okay. So throughout they look green, okay. They don't look like a dead tree or a deciduous tree, right? So they are called evergreen trees. Now new leaves keep growing throughout the year in these trees. Example, eucalyptus, jackfruit, pine and fig. So what happens in the plants that grows in the desert? So deserts are the region of very little rainfall, right? And they are very hot and dry due to scarcity of water. Now let's see what happens, how plants adapt themselves to this extreme environment. Now let's go to the next page. So some desert plants are date palm, babool, cactus, prickly pear, right? And what are the adaptations? They have deep roots to absorb water, right? Since the water is very low, very minimum there in the desert, they have deeper root. They have deep root system to absorb the water. Some plants have small leaves and some have spines to prevent the loss of water. So in the desert plants, the leaves are modified into the spines, okay. They are modified into spines, or some plants have very, very thin leaves, right, so that the evaporation of water can be reduced. In cacti, the stems become fleshy, contain chlorophyll to carry out photosynthesis. The leaves change to spines, right. In cactus, the leaves change into spine, and the stem, this part, then have the chlorophyll, and the work of the leaves to do the photosynthesis is then done by the stem, right. Do you know, students, what would happen if desert plants had large leaves instead of spines? So think about this. Now plants in mountains. So mountains have a cold climate, right, again a extreme climate. So evergreen trees such as pine, deodar, fir and spruce are the examples of these mountain plants, and they have following adaptation, like trees are tall and straight, right. You must have seen these types of trees on the hills. They are cone shaped like this, right. They are cone shaped, so that the snowfall that falls on them falls off easily from their surface, right. Most plants have needle like leaves, right. They have needle like leaves just like this, right. They have this type of leaf and not this. Leaves have a waxy coating, it prevents loss of water. So again, leaves have a waxy coating that prevents any kind of loss of water, right. Do you know, students, mountain trees do not have flowers but have seeds in cones, and they are called coniferous or coniferous trees such as pine and deodar. So the trees on the mountains do not have flower, right? So the seeds are produced in the form of cones, right? And these are called the coniferous trees, okay? What about the heavy rainfall areas? So plants in the heavy rainfall areas, right, they receive enough sunlight and water throughout the year. They have ample amount of sunlight and good amount of water throughout the year. So their leaves are broad and can capture sunlight for making food, right? They get good amount of sunlight, they get good amount of water, so they do not need to protect any kind of water loss. So therefore they have broad leaf, right? And so that they can make more food, they can do the photosynthesis process. So for example, pineapple, cotton, cashew, teak, these are all examples of heavy rainfall plants that are grown in this heavy rainfall area. Now let's go to the next page. So plants in swamps and marshes. So in this area, the region that have clayey and sticky soil allow water to collect easily are called swamps and marshes, okay? So these are the kind of areas that have sticky soil, clayey soil, and this kind of soils remains the water, right? Absorbs the water and allow water to collect easily. And these kind of areas are called swamps and marshes. Here the soil does not have sufficient air for plants to roots, for the plants and the roots, okay? So the soil is so much sticky, so much clayey that there is very little amount of air between the soil particles, okay? And therefore the plant and the roots doesn't get sufficient air. Very few plants grow in swamps and marshes such as mangroves and reeds. So very few kind of plant can grow here. The plants that grow here have certain adaptations. So they have breathing roots, okay, that stick out of water and soil to take in air, okay. So they have breathing root that can breathe air from the air, okay, air, okay. These roots have special pores through which exchange of gases takes place. So they have special kind of pores through which exchange of gases takes place, and mangroves grow in swamps near the sea, okay. So in these areas mangroves grow, okay, especially near the sea. Now let's talk about the insectivorous plant. So some plants grow in region where they do not get sufficient nutrients from the soil, okay. So there are some regions where the nutrients are not sufficient, okay, and the leaves of these plants are modified to trap insects to fulfill their nitrogen requirement. So these kind of plants are adapted to fulfill their nutrients need by trapping insect, by eating insects and fulfilling their nitrogen requirement. So such plants are called the insectivorous plants. So basically they are insect eater. They eat insects like the Venus flytrap, pitcher plants and sundew, right? Can you see this? This is the area, this is the hole from where they eat the insect, right? So insectivorous plants are green, right, and they can make food by the process of photosynthesis, okay. They can make their food by photosynthesis, but the nutrient that they get through photosynthesis is not enough, and that's why they fulfill their nitrogen needs by eating insects. Now saprophytic plants, okay. So some plants are non-green as they do not have chlorophyll. So see, there are some plants that are purple in color. For example, their leaves are purple, red, right, yellow. This means they do not have chlorophyll. So what happens in this case? They cannot prepare their own food. They cannot do photosynthesis. Therefore, they feed on dead and decaying matter for plants and animals to get nourishment, okay. So the dead and decaying matter of the plants and animals is used, they use these decayed plants and animals to feed their nutrient demand. Such plants are called saprophytic plants, okay, like mushrooms, coral root, molds, right? Now let's go to the next page. So parasitic plants, there are also parasitic plants. So some plants obtain nutrients from other plants. These are called parasitic plants, and the plants from which they get nutrition are called host. Okay, so they get nutrition from the other plant, not from themselves. Okay, and from the plant they are taking nutrients are called the hosts. They have special root-like structure that grow into the host plant to absorb nutrient, right? They have this root-like structure which helps them to take nutrient from the host, okay, like the dodder, the mistletoe, okay. Now, do you know, so this was all about the parasitic plants. Now, can you tell what is the difference between the parasitic and the saprophytic plants? Okay. Think about this, alright. Now, let's recall this chapter, what we have learned in this chapter. So, the place where an organism lives in nature is called its habitat. Plants have special features to survive in their habitat. This is called adaptation. Some plants live and grow in water are called aquatic plants. Plants that live and grow on land are called terrestrial plants. On mountains, trees are tall and cone-shaped. Evergreen plants grow in the region of the heavy rainfall. Mangroves grow in marshy areas. They breathe with breathing roots. Now, let's go to the next page. Insectivore plants have modified leaves to trap insects to fulfill their nitrogen requirement. Saprophytic plants are non-green. They get nutrition from dead plants and animals. Parasitic plants absorb nutrients from the other plants. Now, let's get to the exercise part. Okay, so we will go to all the questions one by one. We will solve one part of each question and the rest you will do by your own. So, first is tick the correct option. Dash plant has breathing root. So, it is the mangrove, right? Next is the match the following. Match this column with the other column. So, underwater plant, cactus, hydrilla, pitcher plant, water hyacinth, pine tree. So, which is the underwater plant? So, you have to match this column with this column. So, underwater plant. The example of underwater plant is hydrilla, right? Now, next question is fill in the blanks. Plants grow in dash land have breathing root. So, it is swamp marshy, right? They have breathing roots. Now, let's go to the next page. Next question is define habitat. So, it's a short answer type question. Define habitat. It is the place where an plant or an animal lives, right? It is the natural place where they live. Long answer type question. What adaptations are found in the desert plant? So, they have what? They have chlorophyll in their stem. They have modified leaves. They have very thin or the leaves are developed into the spines, right? So, these are some adaptation in the desert plant. Then there is one fun activity for you. So, find out 5 names of plants in the box, okay? So, these are the mixed lecture. So, you have to find the names of the plants. For example, pine, okay? So, this is how you have to do it. Now, I hope this chapter is clear to you. So, based on the understanding from this chapter, you have to revise and do the rest of the questions in your homework.